Alex Cora is not the problem with the Boston Red Sox right now. I'll tell you why on today's Locked on Red Sox.
You are Locked on Red Sox, your daily Boston Red Sox podcast. Part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to Locked on Red Sox, your daily Boston Red Sox podcast, part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Gabby, former ESPN social media associate and current host of the Boston Balling podcast as well. And I am here to bring you the latest in all things Boston Red Sox, Monday through Friday, straight to your favorite podcast feed. And the best part is it is all completely free. So you might as well check it out. You really have nothing to lose because Locked On is your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. I don't know about you, but when I hear what time is it, I think of the song from High School Musical 2, and now I want to watch that movie, which maybe I will later on. But welcome to today's show. This is an interesting time of the year for the Red Sox because they're in this weird situation where they are fighting for a playoff spot, but it seems unlikely, but they're trying to just hang on by a thread and give us, the fans, the slightest hope that they have a chance and can make the postseason. But at the same time, they've exceeded expectations overall this year from the standpoint of how they've found success and the fact that a lot of their young talent is performing better than people thought that it would. And a lot of people thought they would finish in last place in the division, which, I mean, if they continue to play the way that they overall have been since the All-Star break, and they are playing sloppy defense and the pitching staff isn't able to get it done and their offense can't figure it out when the pitching does, then there is a possibility that does happen. But let's hope that does not end up being the case. Will the Red Sox make the postseason? Time will tell over this next month or so. But one of the biggest things that I've seen here on Twitter over the last couple weeks is Alex Cora being to blame for the Red Sox struggles. Alex Cora is not the problem with the Boston Red Sox. Why? For several reasons. One, Alex Cora is not out there on the field with the players. If they can't execute and make the routine plays on defense, that's not Alex Cora's fault. If they make a base running blunder because they think it's a good idea to try to stretch out a double into a triple and they're out by a mile, that's not Alex Cora's fault. He can't control the on-field play in the middle of a game. And yes, he is the coach and it's his job to guide these players through what they should and shouldn't be doing. But at the end of the day, these guys are Major League Baseball players and they need to perform. They need to go out there and play to the level that they are getting paid to play at. And if they're going to go out there and be completely clueless in the field and make these mistakes defensively that they shouldn't be making, that's just called having a low baseball IQ and not being aware of the situation and your surrounding. And that's a problem. To me, that screams a player who doesn't know how to make the best in-game decisions. And if you're a Red Sox fan, that should concern you. But at the end of the day, Alex Cora can help them as a coach to keep themselves on track. But at this level, they should not have to be taught how to make the routine plays. They should not have to be taught what's smart base running and what's not. That's something you learn at the lower levels. And by the time you're a Major League Baseball player and you're making real money to play this sport, you as a player need to be able to figure it out. So that is one reason why Alex Cora is not the problem. Problem number two that pretty much goes hand in hand with that, with the argument that Alex Cora is the issue, is that how can he miraculously turn an average team into a great team when the talent level is not there. We should be looking to ownership in the front office a lot more than we should be looking at Alex Cora in terms of the roster flaws and the fact that they didn't do nearly as much as they should have done in the offseason and leading up to the trade deadline to improve this team, especially from a pitching perspective. And going into the season, the starting pitching was very good. The Red Sox were clicking as an overall unit and surprising a lot of people. But then the minute the pitching started to struggle is when we could start to see the flaws in the pitching staff that this team has. And Alex Cora doesn't supply the roster. He doesn't make the roster or control which players the Red Sox as an organization bring and do not bring in. So there's only so much he can do to maximize the potential of the guys that he's given. And considering the circumstance and the rosters that he has had in the years following the 2018 team, I mean, literally that team was ridiculously good, broke all these records, and basically cruised their way to the World Series. Rafael Devers is the only current player on this Red Sox team that's from that team. And that's very sad. And that's not an Alex Cora issue. He didn't choose to let go of all these players from the 2018 team. It was the organization's idea because they wanted to move the organization in a different direction. And they decided that they wanted to create a team that was younger and they could be for future focused. And that's exactly what's happening here. That was not Alex Cora's decision. And if the organization is trying to focus more on the future and focusing on their young players, then by all means they can do that. But don't pin that on Alex Cora because that's an organizational decision, not an Alex Cora decision. Also, Alex Cora's ability to connect with the players is something that goes unmatched. Many different players have talked about in interviews how much of a player's coach Cora is. And it's really important to understand that and the ability he has to put himself in his players' shoes because he has been there. I mean, he spent multiple years in Major League Baseball as a player. And in that regard, it's good because he can connect with these guys and understand what they're going through and the everyday hardships that go into being a successful player at the major league level. So having Cora by their side from that standpoint is huge because it allows him to connect with them emotionally so that they feel like they have somebody by their side through the season. Not every manager is known to be the same way as Alex Cora in that regard. And being able to connect with the players is more important than you might think. Because some managers, if they don't connect with their players, they'll lose the locker room. And it creates a lot worse of an environment and camaraderie among the team. But if Alex Cora is connecting with these guys and helping them to see their abilities, it'll help them overall to feel more confident in their play and feel more confident as a team. And that leads into another thing. Alex Cora's ability to connect with these guys has allowed him to make the most of the situation he's been giving and expand on these teams and rosters that he's had since 2018. I mean, 2021, they had no business going to the ALCS. Nobody thought they would. They surpassed expectations and made it all the way to the American League Championship Series, where they then lost to a better Astros team, but they still put up a fight. And that was because they had Alex Cora supporting them and was there for every single player on this team. And that's something that's so important if you want to build a contending team, is being able to believe in your players and maximize the potential. And even in 2022 and 2023, yes, the Red Sox were not a good baseball team and things were a mess for a while, but he still allowed them to be able to be respectable in those seasons and helped them to at least stay in some of the more respectable conversations as the season progressed in terms of where they were at. And in 2024, all the injuries that they've been plagued with this season, Alex Cora has been able to keep this team in playoff contention or just out of it for basically the entirety of the season. And that says a lot about a team that already going into the season didn't have the craziest amount of talent on it. So then you lose some of your key players to injuries, and there's all of this roster movement going on. Alex Cora was the one who was there to make the in-game management decisions and allow this team to stay in play in that playoff race and be a team that people were looking at and saying, wow, I did not expect them to be this good. I did not expect them to be in the middle of their division and be in playoff contention. And Alex Cora deserves a lot of credit for that and keeping this team afloat during a really hard time for the Red Sox due to injuries that they've faced this season. And it just seems like it's one injury after another and guys not being able to stay on the field. So the fact that Alex Cora has been able to put them where they're at, and we can even still be talking about a potential playoff spot, says a lot about his ability to manage a successful baseball team. So next time you're looking at this Red Sox team and this second half collapse after the All-Star break, there are other things you should be looking at. And that problem is not Alex Cora. This team is lucky to have him as a manager. And I'm happy that he signed an extension here because this team is very fortunate to have Alex Cora here. He's a very knowledgeable baseball guy, and he trusts his players. He puts a lot of trust into guys who want to stay out there for another inning if they're starting a game, or if they're in the middle of an inning and there's base traffic and he feels like he should pull them, but they feel confident and want to stay in the game. He trusts them, and a lot of times it pans out and it helps with the growth of these players. And he's stretching out the younger players, pushing them past their comfort zones, putting them in in-game situations that might not be as comfortable for them so that they can continue to grow as athletes and baseball players. And that is only going to help with the Red Sox future as these young guys continue to progress in their careers. So I'm a big Alex Cora fan. Do not blame him because he is not the problem with the Boston Red Sox right now. And coming up next, I'm going to be telling you just what is the problem with the Red Sox and the reason for their second half collapse. At this time of year, it's always so important to stay hydrated. And that means sometimes using additional supplies besides just water. That's where Liquid IV comes in. You can get hydrated with electrolytes, essential vitamins, and clinically tested nutrients from the #1 powdered hydration brand in America. Because baseball and summer go together like Liquid IV and indulgent hydration. Liquid IV is a powder that you pour in your water and you can mix the two together to make sure you're staying hydrated. And they have really fun flavors. Like there's a popsicle flavor that's delicious. There's a pina colada one that I tried that I absolutely loved. And it will make sure that you're feeling good after a night out or while you're traveling, or maybe if you just don't have access to a lot of water that day because you were outside all day and didn't have water on you. So lots of situations in which Liquid IV can change your life. Tear, pour, live more. 1 stick plus 16 ounces of water hydrates better than water alone. No more thirsty summers when you indulge in hydration with Liquid IV. Get 20% off your first order of Liquid IV when you go to liquidiv.com and use code MLB at checkout. That's 20% off your first order when you shop Better Hydration today using promo code MLB at liquidiv.com. I promise you, I've used this stuff multiple times and it makes me feel better every single time. So take advantage of it and purchase some. Also, take advantage of Game Time if you want to get tickets to fun events. It is a ticketing source that gives you the better prices. I've seen its prices compared to other ticketing services, and it helps you to save money. And I've seen the difference physically when I look on other sites and I look on Game Time, and it's noticeable. They're also having a 50% off Labor Day sale. offer for some baseball games, so you definitely won't want to miss out on that. And what makes Game Time so great is its ability to provide you a good view from your seat, so you make sure that you're buying tickets that you're happy with. And it saves money too, because it gives you tickets for the best value that you can possibly find. What's also exciting is it has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets for your favorite live events easier. And there's just a lot of different things that it offers, so I highly recommend taking advantage of it. Game Time Picks. Curation makes it easier to save more on sports, concerts, comedy, theater, etc. Get a panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy. The lowest price guarantee, or Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. Your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. I'm going to be honest with you here. I don't use any other ticketing service anymore besides Game Time, because I've just saved so much money on it. So make sure that you take advantage of that today. Alex Cora is not the issue with the Boston Red Sox. There are so many things that he brings to the table as the Red Sox manager, and it's unfair to place him in a position of taking all the fall for what is going on with this Red Sox team right now and this collapse after the All-Star break. Now, this happened last year too, where the Red Sox were playing good baseball and then fell apart after the All-Star break. Fatigue was a big part of that. Lots of injuries. So lots of guys who were pitching more than they were used to, and their arms were going really tired, and it affected their play on the field. A similar thing has definitely happened this year, because the Red Sox waited a bit too long to trade for pitchers at the trade deadline. So as a result, leading up to that, pitchers were being overworked and were taking on more activity than they're really used to. And that's a big problem for a team trying to find themselves in the playoff conversation. So the biggest problem with the Red Sox right now is that bullpen. The bullpen cannot get it together. They've given up lots of runs since the All-Star break. And if the offense puts up 6 or 7 runs in a game, but then the bullpen is going and giving up all of those runs, that is a huge concern, because it's not fair to the offense for them to go and score 6 to 7 runs a game, but then feel like that's not enough, because then they have to keep plugging away, because a reliever will come into the game and blow it, and then the game is tied, and then the Red Sox are like, well, now what? Now we're forced to score more runs, and if they've run out of gas for the day on offense, then what are they supposed to do? It's not fair, and it's super telling that this bullpen is the issue, because of the fact that the bullpen has been the reason that the Red Sox have lost a majority of their games since the break. For example, they had a 7-4 lead against the Texas Rangers in the 9th inning, and the Rangers won the game 9-4. They gave up 5 runs in the 9th inning when they were 1 out away from finishing the game. That is very concerning and very pathetic, honestly. And this bullpen needs some serious revamping this offseason. Craig Breslow and company have no choice but to go through and adjust this bullpen so that it meets the needs of what a contending team should have. And it's going to involve spending money, which I know that John Henry doesn't like to do, but the Red Sox have found themselves now backed into a wall, to the point where they have no choice but to go out and acquire some really solid arms this offseason. And it goes for the starting rotation too. I mean, the rotation overall this year has definitely been better than a lot of people expected it to be. But the reality here is that they still need work, and they would be a lot better team right now if they had a true number 1 frontline starter. And for the first half of the season, it looked like Tanner Houck was that true number one starter because he was pitching a Cy Young caliber season early on, but then he started to fall apart after the All-Star break. And since then, he hasn't been nearly as sharp as he was in the first half of the season. And something definitely changed there to the point where he hasn't been able to break out of it. And it's super concerning. And if we got the version of Houck in this second half that we've gotten in the first half, it would be a lot different because then the conversation could be, okay, Houck has shown that he's capable of pitching a full season at a very high level. So from that regard, we can feel confident that we found our ace that we can continue to build around. But now, because Houck has struggled in the second half, they are going to need to go out and spend money on a front end starter like Corbin Burnes or Jack Flaherty, someone who is a proven ace that won't be coming in here as a question mark. They need that, and that would be a huge difference making move for the Red Sox going into 2025, and it would change the whole outlook of what this team could potentially look like. They absolutely have to address it, have to acquire a true ace caliber starter and probably one more starter too to go along with a completely revamped bullpen. I do think there are some guys in this pen that have the potential. I mean, Justin Slayton obviously is fantastic. Chris Martin is a solid piece. Who knows what's going to happen with him? Kenley Jansen likely won't be here anymore, but if that's the case, they need to find a closer because you need somebody to close games that you can trust. But other than that, it's few and far between the number of guys in this bullpen that you can actually trust. And with all of the injuries that have taken place, the Red Sox could say this guy deserves a better chance and more of an opportunity because he was injured. But they can't do that. They need to take the approach of assuming it's not going to work out with any of these players because they are a little too far removed from the game because of their injuries. And he needs to treat this offseason, Craig Breslow does, as if this is a do or die offseason. Go ham, go out and get the guys necessary to pitch in this bullpen because that has been the biggest problem this season for Boston. Another big issue has been their defense. They did give up more errors in a game against the Blue Jays the other night than runs they scored. They scored 1 run and made 4 errors. That is not at all a recipe for success, and it's pretty pathetic, and they need to cut down on the errors, and that means working with guys so that they can fix that problem or acquiring players who are more reliable defensively. Now, granted, in the Red Sox defense, they thought they were going to have Trevor Story here to play shortstop, who has great defense. And I do feel like the Red Sox as a whole would have a lot cleaner defense if Trevor Story was here, but he's not. And they've tried to do what they can. Sadam Rafaela plays a great infield defense at shortstop, but David Hamilton doesn't cut it defensively. Romy Gonzalez has had his struggles defensively. So overall, that middle infield situation needs to be worked out. They need to figure out what that tandem is going to look like at second base and shortstop to the point where they can trust both of them regularly on defense. I mean, who knows what's going to happen with Vaughn Grisham because he has been injured. And when he comes back, is he going to fit into the puzzle because he's down in AAA now that he's finally healthy? So they feel like that's the best spot for him. Is he even going to get his opportunity back in the majors? Is Christian Campbell, who's been performing really well in AAA so far, going to come up next year? Whatever it is, they need to figure it out, and they need to clean up the defense because it has been a serious problem for this Red Sox team this year. And that is something that if they don't fix, they will be in a lot of trouble next year. So when you start to think about problems with the Boston Red Sox, all of these things are things that Alex Cora can't help with. He can't go out there and take the ball on the mound from a reliever who's not pitching well and pitch for them. these guys need to go out there and perform at the end of the day. And from a morale standpoint, Alex Cora is doing everything he can. And I feel like there are definitely better performances we could see from guys like Lucas Sims and Luis Garcia, and they are simply not performing up to expectations. So those are the biggest problems with the Red Sox. And if they don't make the playoffs this year, it will certainly be upsetting, but the future for the Red Sox is bright. So we can get excited about that, if nothing else, coming out of this season. And coming up, I'm going to be talking about a piece of that future for the Red Sox and whether it's time to be concerned. If you're looking for a fun way to play daily fantasy sports, PrizePicks is the place for you. PrizePicks is America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with over 5 million active members. PrizePicks is the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Unlike other apps, on PrizePicks, it's just you against the numbers. You can now win up to 100 times your money on PrizePicks with as little as 4 correct picks. You can literally turn $10 into 1,000. PrizePicks is the best way to win real money this football season. Which players are going off? Which ones aren't? Make your picks in less than 60 seconds and turn your sports opinions into real money all season long on PrizePicks. Just download the PrizePicks app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB and get $50 instantly when you play $5. That's code LOCKEDONMLB on PrizePicks to get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. PrizePicks, run your game. You control your destiny here on PrizePicks, and that's a great way of doing things because you're in control of how much money you win. So might as well check that out today. Thank you for making Locked On Red Sox your first listen today. Now go check out the Locked On MLB podcast after this. Prepare for the Fall Classic with Sully, who has it all covered every single day. You can find the link to Locked On MLB in the description so you don't need to search. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Sully always gives a great overview of what's going on with other teams across the league, so make sure you check out his show. The Boston Red Sox may miss the playoffs this year, but you want to know the good news? They have a very bright future ahead of them, full of players who have a ton of talent and are ready to showcase that on the big stage. Prospects who can come up and provide a ton of value, like Roman Anthony, Christian Campbell, Kyle Teal, guys who have the ability to be absolute game changers for this Red Sox team, along with the young core they already have established in Tristan Casas, Jarren Duran, Wilyer Abreu, Cedar Rafaela, and even Rafael Devers, who's not super young but isn't super old and is here for a long time because of his contract extension. That is the mold. That is the core group that the Red Sox are focusing on building around right now. And the future is so bright, especially from an offensive standpoint. Lots of scary hitters that they could have in this lineup. One player who has perhaps been the most hyped up prospect, maybe in Red Sox history, is Marcelo Mayer, who in theory is supposed to be part of this big group of players eventually getting called up to make a difference with this Red Sox team and be a guy who can contribute on a regular basis. But the biggest concern with Marcelo Mayer right now is his injuries. He just has not been able to stay on the field. The question is he injury prone, which is totally a fair question to ask in the wake of the 21-year-old shortstop's season-ending injury, which is a lumbar strain that was diagnosed after an MRI when his rehab plateaued. We knew that he was feeling some pain and he had other injuries here and there throughout the season, but this is officially now at the point where his season is over. He was having an excellent season, unfortunately for him, because he has to see it come to an end. He was hitting .307 with a .370 on base percentage and .480 slugging for AA Portland, but never got to play for Worcester following his promotion to AAA because his season concluded after just 77 games and he was never healthy enough to make his AAA debut. He thus played one fewer game this year than he did in 2023 when a left shoulder impingement ended his season in early August. So he has not played a lot since being drafted by the Boston Red Sox. He's now rehabbing in Fort Myers, but he downplayed the significance of his injury. He said, I fully expect to have a very normal offseason. You can be sure I'm going to work hard this offseason to come back stronger than ever next season. But more than 3 years after being taken in the first round of the 2021 draft, he has never played more than 91 games in a season. So are injuries something we should be concerned about with him going forward? Alex Cora did comment on it and said there's a lot of potential there. Obviously, there's a lot of other things that we have to work on. The injuries, obviously, from my end, concerning, to be honest with you. We've just got to make sure we keep him healthy. That's the most important thing. The succession of injuries for him between his right wrist injury in 2022, left shoulder, lower back, could suggest a concerning pattern that indicates he might not be able to stay healthy and could be an injury liability for the Boston Red Sox when he eventually gets called up. Many college players, though, and even some high school players like Roman Anthony, for example, enter pro ball having achieved the physical development to withstand the duration of a full minor league season. But Mayer is among the many high schoolers for whom that's not necessarily the case. He didn't lift weights in high school as an amateur. He focused on maintaining athleticism and looseness in his movements rather than strength training. So for the Red Sox, that represented part of his appeal because he was already gifted with a sweet and balanced swing and the ability to just absolutely barrel the ball. So he had untapped potential because he hadn't even neared his physical upside. And the team anticipated a multi-year process for him to gain strength that would contribute to both bat speed and durability in the big leagues anyway. But that process is still ongoing with some notable gains, primarily his elite bat speed and the ability to hit absolute rockets have been positives in his game. His top end exit velocity this year was 115 miles an hour. So he's definitely getting there, but he's still further away from maxing out physically than prospects who embraced strength programs at earlier points. And to some extent, his injuries are seen partly as a product of working to develop the strength to be durable. It's not that unusual for a top prospect taken out of high school. He was the first of 14 high school position players taken in the first round of his draft class, and his 272 career minor league games rank 8th among that group of 14. But it's absolutely fair to ask whether he can stay on the field for a full season. Luckily, youth does remain on his side, partly given that team officials have observed sizable year-over-year strength gains since he started his pro career. But now, as he prepares for a 2025 season in which he'll be seen as part of the big league depth equation, it's up to him to prove that his injury history falls within the realm of normal growing pains, and he's not going to be somebody who's going to turn into an injury liability, because if he's an injury liability, that throws off a lot of the longer term plan that the Red Sox had in terms of building around Marcelo Mayer, Roman Anthony, and Kyle Teal. These are guys who they have had their eyes on for a long time, the guys that they expect to be the future of the organization, that they want to build this team around over the next few seasons and beyond. And if he can't stay on the field, then they're going to have to come up with a contingency plan at shortstop. And I don't think the Red Sox want to have to do that because they have put a lot of marbles into this Marcelo Mayer basket. And it would be very unideal for them if they're realizing he can't be relied upon to play on a game-to-game basis. So we have to hope that from a physical and health standpoint, that he is able to prove that he actually can stay on the field, and he's not somebody that the Red Sox are going to have to be fully concerned about year after year when he's in the system. This is a big upcoming season for him now in 2025 to be able to show that he has the ability to get through a full season without missing extended periods of time with an injury, but definitely unideal for the Red Sox and what their vision is for the future of this team. So hopefully he's able to turn things around in 2025 and we see him come up to the majors when his time is here. As always, though, like I always say, when the Red Sox are pushing through here to try to get a playoff spot, just keep the faith. That's all we can really do as fans. Things will work out how they're supposed to, and we have a future full of lots of young talent to look forward to. So that's something to take solace in as well. Go Red Sox, and I will catch you on the flip side.